The kitchen was infused with the warm aroma of cinnamon and baked apples, while the joyful laughter of my son echoed throughout the home. With the oven timer silenced, a smile crept across my face as I reflected on our cherished Sunday ritual, a sacred tradition that had woven itself into the fabric of our lives. I have clung steadfastly ever since I welcomed Ethan into my life. He remained unaware of the entire narrative, for to him, I was simply his mother, and that sufficed. My gaze drifted to the window, where the frost-laden garden shimmered under the feeble December sunlight. In my early years, I can vividly recall his small hand gripping mine with a gentle yet determined hold. The memory lingered vividly, distant yet palpable, reminiscent of a cherished photograph tucked away in a long-forgotten album. Ethan had reached the age of 19. He stood tall, with broad shoulders, and wore a smile that came effortlessly. Yet there was a subtle strength about him. He could never grasp the profound impact he had on my heart. As Ethan stepped through the doorway, his hair stood in disarray, and his sweater hung slightly askew. The timer chimed, and I lifted my gaze. "Mom, it smells wonderful," he remarked, resting against the doorframe. "That's merely a result of your hunger," I quipped, pulling the apple pie from the oven. His laughter enveloped me in a comforting embrace, a warm and youthful melody that brought joy to my heart. He confessed to his guilt. These moments held great significance for me, as they served as a poignant reminder of how profoundly his presence had filled the emptiness within. Once upon a time, my husband David departed after the doctors validated what I had long suspected. I was unable to bear children. When he departed, my world shattered. Yet while David perceived a conclusion, I recognized an opportunity for renewal. Ethan was the glue that mended my shattered heart. As we sat down to enjoy our meal, his phone began to ring, yet he remained completely oblivious to its persistent chime. His thoughts were solely consumed by me. "Do you have any plans for today?" I inquired. He mentioned he was engrossed in a project, running his fingers through his hair, and then perhaps a run would follow. "What about you?" I shrugged, as I often do, contemplating a cleanup of the attic. Assistance would be appreciated. He presented it. I averted my gaze. "I understand. Everything revolves around school." The attic was a place I longed to claim as my own. I found myself unprepared to unveil the memories nestled within the dusty boxes. Fear gripped me, a haunting thought that secrets might unravel the life we had painstakingly woven together. My affection for Ethan ran deep, akin to that of a parent for their child, yet I frequently pondered the impact of the truth on his heart. What would his perception of me be at this moment? Sense of betrayal. That afternoon, I ascended the old, creaky stairs leading to the attic. As I tugged the chain to illuminate the space, a chill brushed against my fingertips. As I sifted through boxes brimming with photographs, infant garments, and adoption documents, the scent of aged paper and timber enveloped the space. Elements from the existence I had meticulously crafted. A photograph of Ethan in his infancy caught my eye. His striking blue eyes gazed upward at the camera. As I reflected on the depth of my affection for him, the memory of that first encounter flooded my mind. Him, nestled in a blanket within the serene confines of the adoption agency's nursery, causing my heart to constrict with emotion. The social worker had cautioned me that he could be a challenging child, given his premature birth to a young mother without financial means and no intention of returning. Yet I found Ethan to be wonderful. "Mother," his voice caught me off guard, and I nearly let the picture slip from my grasp. Ethan lingered in the doorway, a frown etched upon his features. "What brought you to this place?" I set the picture aside and remarked, merely sifting through some old belongings. He advanced a step, his gaze revealing a flicker of intrigue. "How may I be of service to you?" "Absolutely not." I intended for the word to carry a sharper edge, so I softened my tone. "Is that so?" "It's merely uninspiring material. It would turn your stomach." He remained still, his gaze repeatedly drifting toward a box beside me. "What lies within?" As he extended his hand towards it, my heart raced with anticipation. "Ethan, I implore you." His expression betrayed a deep-seated anxiety as he stood motionless. "What's happening?" I parted my lips to utter a word, yet silence enveloped me. How can I convey the weight of my silence? How can I convey the truth without causing us to unravel? I offered her a feeble smile instead, merely a collection of aged documents, memories that linger, untouched for years. Ethan cast a brief glance in my direction before giving a subtle nod. Very well. Yet, as he turned to leave, a flicker of uncertainty danced in his gaze. I lingered in his doorway that night, observing as he grappled with the well-known ache of guilt taking hold. Deep down, I understood that revealing the truth was essential, yet fear held me captive. I retreated to my room, placing the photograph of baby Ethan gently upon my nightstand. Gazing at the frame's edges, my mind wandered to David's silent exit, the challenging aspects of adoption, and the joy of witnessing Ethan's first steps. I often reflected on the vow I took when I welcomed him into my life, a commitment to love him unconditionally, regardless of the circumstances. I have chosen to keep my secret for the time being. Ethan was my son. One day, when the moment was just right, I would share everything with him. Until that moment, I allowed myself to embrace the unspoken connection we shared, a connection that transcended mere blood ties, rooted deeply in love and trust. The brief winter days gave way to extended, tranquil nights. Within the confines of our dwelling, an unfamiliar cadence began to emerge. We indulged in films, experimented with new culinary creations, and shared laughter, all of which infused our surroundings with a comforting warmth. The sight of him now was impossible to overlook. The way his jaw tightened when he focused, the way his smile lit up his eyes. A mother ought not to dwell on such matters constantly. Yet, they lingered in my thoughts like persistent thorns, refusing to fade into oblivion. How about we indulge in a cozy movie night? On a quiet evening, Ethan's voice echoed from the living room. I snatched a blanket from the hall closet and declared, "Only if I get to choose." He emitted a resonant grunt. "All right, but if it turns out to be yet another tedious drama, I'll whip up some popcorn to keep myself entertained." He collapsed beside me as I chuckled and nestled into the couch. It is essential to explore a wider array of flavors. For an experience to be enjoyable, it need not escalate dramatically. I jested at their expense. He regarded me with a smile that spoke volumes. Explosions elevate everything to a new level of excitement. As the film began, a serene hush enveloped the audience. The gentle illumination of the screen cast a warm hue upon his face. As the opening credits rolled and the main event unfolded, I sensed his arm draped casually over the back of the couch. Though it was a familiar gesture, each time his hand brushed against my shoulder, my heart would flutter unexpectedly. I reassured myself that it was inconsequential, merely a touch I hadn't intended to initiate. Yet the warmth persisted, drawing my thoughts to matters best left untouched. He released my arm as I shifted slightly to adjust the blanket more comfortably. I glimpsed him stealing a glance at me from the periphery of my vision. His face bore an enigmatic expression. "Is everything all right, Mom?" His voice trembled as he inquired. I offered a brief nod, naturally, as I was still acclimating to the situation. Though he refrained from making a move, the tension between us crackled like static in the air. I feigned a yawn as the credits began to roll. As I rose to fold the blanket, I declared, "It's time for bed for me." "Do not linger beyond midnight," he responded. "Sweet dreams, dear mother." His gaze lingered on me for a moment longer than usual. The following morning, Ethan astonished me with his unexpected offer to assist in tidying up the garage. Rarely does Ethan seize the opportunity to take charge on a Saturday. What began as a mundane task swiftly transformed into a delightful adventure filled with laughter as we sifted through forgotten treasures. He lifted an aged, worn photograph of me and remarked, "Hey, take a look at this. Mom, you had a certain charm about you." I sighed dramatically and snatched the picture from his grasp. "I appreciate it, and I have faith." He reclined against the workbench, a hearty laugh escaping his lips. "It's quite peculiar to consider that you once shared my age. It appears that you have consistently embodied the role of a mother." My hesitation lingered as the words I yearned to express became lodged in my throat. It resided deep within me, a longing to reveal the truth of our journey to becoming a family. Yet, I was determined not to allow the moment to fade into oblivion. I chose to smile instead. I did not enter this world as a middle-aged individual. Believe it or not, I experienced some wild days. Absolutely not. I chuckled as I struck him with the photograph. Now that I am aware of it. He evaded and grinned. All right, let's keep this between us. He ought to be aware, however. As evening fell, the garage had transformed into a slightly more organized space, and I treated us to takeout as a reward for our diligent efforts. The heater emitted a soft, steady hum in the background as we gathered around the kitchen table for our meal. At that moment, Ethan's phone chimed from its resting place on the table. He cast a fleeting glance at it before switching it off. I will not respond to the question I posed. It holds little significance, however. He offered a nonchalant shrug. Merely a companion. I gazed at him for a fleeting moment and noticed the faint flush of color on his cheeks. Partner. I jested at their expense. He swiftly shook his head. Nothing of the sort. Dating isn't exactly my cup of tea. Oh, I attempted to maintain an air of normalcy, as if nothing was amiss. Yet, the unexpected wave of relief that washed over me left my stomach in knots. He gazed into my eyes for a moment that stretched just a bit too long and said, "It just feels complicated. Yet, there are individuals who truly deserve it." In an instant, the room felt constricted, thick with an unvoiced tension that hung palpably between us. As I extended my hand toward the water glass, my gaze drifted elsewhere. Ensure that the individual you encounter is truly worthy of your time when the moment arrives. Or Ethan remarked with a grin that aimed to elicit laughter. I arched an eyebrow, concealing the amusement bubbling within me. Or as the tension dissipated, laughter erupted. Yet that moment lingered in my mind, weaving itself into the fabric of my reflections. After Ethan settled into his slumber that night, I found myself wandering through the desolate house alone. The moonlight filtered through the windows, casting gentle shadows that danced across the room. I paused and glanced within, drawn by the open door that beckoned me closer. He lay in a deep slumber, the soft glow casting a serene aura upon his features. As I stood there, a weight settled in my chest, and I sensed an impending tempest of unnamed emotions ready to engulf me. In my heart, Ethan was my son in every sense, despite not sharing our bloodline. We had transformed, and I couldn't ignore the truth as I observed him. My heart responded to him in ways it ought not to have. I swiftly averted my gaze, retreated to my room, and pressed my hand against my chest. This was incorrect. To feel this way was a mistake. For years, I had loved and cared for my son. Yet somewhere along the journey, the boundaries had become indistinct, leaving me uncertain about how to mend it. As dawn broke, Ethan caught sight of me cradling a steaming cup of coffee, my gaze anchored to the kitchen window. "Are you all right?" he inquired, his voice laced with concern. I donned a facade of cheerfulness as my mind pondered. "What is this all about?" He forged ahead. After a moment of hesitation, I offered a perspective on life. He replied affirmatively, and a gentle smile graced his lips. "Ethan, it seems you've come of age already. It feels as though I imparted the art of tying your shoes just yesterday." His expression softened, and the words he uttered pierced me to the core. "Mother, I am not the same individual in your absence." His words weighed heavily on my heart, stirring a deep well of emotion that threatened to spill over in tears. I averted my gaze and focused on the dishes before me. "Ethan, you have always been sufficient." I whispered it to myself more than to him, yet uncertainty lingered. Was I still enough? As winter yielded to the gentle whispers of spring, laughter filled our home more frequently, and our relationship blossomed in unexpected ways. Ethan sought me out with increasing frequency, not merely for lighthearted conversations, but also for solace and companionship. In those moments, I found myself entwined in a paradox of emotions, both adoring and dreading the intensity of his gaze as it lingered over me during dinner, or the fleeting touch of his hand against my arm in the kitchen. On a tranquil evening, we found ourselves side by side on the couch, and his arm brushed against mine. His warmth enveloped me. Despite our proximity, I compelled myself to gaze forward, for my heart was pounding fiercely. Mom. His voice trembled as he inquired, "Are you okay?" I shook my head with a suddenness that caught me off guard. Certainly, what reason would I have not to be? He gazed at me and remarked, "You appear to have changed recently." In his distant gaze, I discerned a blend of concern and an elusive emotion that I couldn't quite identify. I attempted to smile, yet the intensity of his gaze rendered it a challenge. "Ethan, I assure you, I'm perfectly all right." He appeared uncertain, yet he remained silent, offering no further words. Instead, he extended his hand and made contact with mine. The subtle gesture sent a jolt through me, creating a connection that enveloped her in both safety and fear simultaneously. The truth was becoming increasingly difficult to conceal. The adoption papers, concealed in the attic, stirred an urgent need within me to act swiftly, for time was slipping away. As twilight descended, I discovered Ethan in the living room. The dwelling exuded a gentle hue of gold. He sat by the window, a book resting on his lap, his long legs stretched out before him. As I entered, he lifted his gaze and a smile spread across his face. A smile that tugged at my heart with great intensity. "Hey," he remarked, setting the book aside. "How do you fare today?" Uncertainty enveloped me, my trembling hands gripping the back of a chair, seeking solace in its steadfastness. "Ethan, we need to have a conversation." His smile faded, and he straightened his posture. "What seems to be the issue?" I hastily replied, "There's nothing amiss," despite the lump in my throat suggesting a different truth. "I have something I wish to share with you. I ought to have shared this with you much earlier." His brow furrowed, and he leaned in, intent on giving me his undivided attention. "All right, what is it?" I inhaled softly, the weight of the words pressing down on my chest. "You have found a new home." A profound silence enveloped the scene. Initially, his expression remained unchanged. It seemed as though the words had yet to penetrate his consciousness. Gradually, his eyes widened, and his mouth parted slightly. Softly spoken, his voice barely rose above a whisper as he repeated the words. I acquiesced, though tears brimmed in my eyes. "Ethan, you have always held the title of my son. From the moment I embraced you, you became a part of me. However, I did not bring you into this world." His expression was one of utter shock and disbelief as he gazed at me. Why did you keep it from me?" I confessed my fear, my voice trembling as I spoke. "I never intended for you to feel that you weren't good enough. I didn't want you to experience that. Perhaps it's time to pause. In every significant aspect, you are my son." My heart shattered as he turned his back, his jaw clenched in silent turmoil. I settled beside him and extended my hand for a shake, yet he remained unresponsive. "Ethan," I murmured with such delicacy that my words barely reached your ears. "Speak your mind." It was a startling sight to witness the glistening tears lingering in his eyes as he turned back to face me. With tears welling in his eyes, he whispered, "You're the only mom I've ever known. It remains unchanged." A wave of relief washed over me as I exhaled, my breath unsteady. He then remarked, "Yet, it does shed light on certain matters." My heart raced with urgency. "Could you clarify what you mean?" He paused to reflect. Then his gaze captured mine. "The emotions I hold for you in this moment. It lacks the essence it once had." We hesitated to voice our emotions, yet the atmosphere surrounding us grew thick with unspoken words. My hands trembled in my lap as I swallowed with difficulty. "Hello, Ethan, you are my child." He replied swiftly, "I know." His voice ascended. "I cherish you as well, but my feelings extend beyond that of a son. That is not the way I have ever loved you." "No, not quite." I called out to Ethan, but my voice faltered. "This is simply not acceptable." He gazed into my eyes and murmured, "Perhaps it is, yet I cannot alter how I feel." My chest swelled, and a tempest of emotions was poised to engulf me. "That isn't quite what you intend to convey," he declared, his gaze unwavering as it remained locked on her. "I sense that you share this feeling as well." I averted my gaze, unable to meet his eyes. The truth lay bare, too perilous and unrefined to be unveiled. "Ethan, I know this may be difficult to grasp, but the complexity of a situation does not diminish its reality. he murmured, his voice dropping to a whisper. Mom, I believe I may never experience these feelings for anyone else again. His words shattered my heart, and tears streamed down my cheeks. Ethan, my affection for you surpasses what words can convey. Yet, he extended his hand and made contact with mine, a gentle yet resolute gesture. We shall navigate this journey side by side. I lowered my head, allowing the tears to cascade down my cheeks. I repeated it time and again. You are my son. As though that could truly banish the emotions. You mean the world to me. He spoke softly. I recall the moments spent in stillness, enveloped by an absence of activity in our surroundings. Uncertainty loomed over us, casting shadows on the path ahead, leaving me to wonder how we might navigate our way out of the difficult situation we found ourselves in. Yet, as I gazed into his eyes, I beheld the love and yearning that had been quietly accumulating between us for weeks. For the first time, I allowed myself to ponder whether love, despite its challenges, could truly be sufficient. The subsequent days unfolded with an almost flawless grace. In the course of our shared moments, we experienced a myriad of emotions that eluded our complete comprehension. A nuanced yet unmistakable shift occurred in Ethan's demeanor. What once appeared insignificant began to carry greater weight. He lingered in the kitchen after breakfast, his fingers brushing against mine as he reached for a plate, his gaze lingering on me just a moment longer. He began to shower me with compliments more frequently. Initially, their words didn't carry a hint of malice as they praised my cooking and complimented my home. Yet, there was a newfound richness in his voice that sent a flush to my cheeks. Before my eyes caught sight of him, I sensed his presence one morning while I savored my coffee by the window. He stepped back, and his warmth enveloped the space that lay between us. "Morning, Mom," he murmured, his voice carrying a softness that felt unfamiliar yet deeply moving. "Good morning," I uttered, my voice barely above a whisper. He began with, I think I've already mentioned how beautiful you appear in this light. His words enveloped the listener, gentle and warm, reminiscent of a tender embrace. I remained motionless, at a loss for words. My heart races, a whirlwind of surprise and gratitude intertwining within me. As I pivoted to confront him, I sought a glimmer of amusement in his expression. Yet all that greeted me were his earnest, unwavering eyes. I began to speak, "Ethan," but he interrupted me with a gentle smile. He stated, "I mean it. Mother, you radiate beauty." His words lingered in my mind long after he had dashed away in the morning light. It had been years since I encountered such a conversation. Ever since David departed, it felt as though Ethan could no longer perceive me as anything beyond a mother, merely a figure of beauty and significance in her own right. A wave of fear washed over me when the realization struck. It awakened a sensation within me that had long been dormant, a yearning to distinguish myself. That evening, Ethan stepped through the door, holding a bouquet of my favorite flowers, lilies. As he handed them to me, I found myself blinking in astonishment. His smile blended pride with a hint of shyness. "What compels you to take this action?" Cradling the flowers against my heart, I inquired without any particular motive. Though his words carried a simplicity, the warmth in his eyes revealed a depth that was anything but ordinary. As I arranged the flowers in the vase, my thoughts swirled with emotions I wasn't prepared to confront. As Ethan leaned against the counter, a slight tremor began to dance through my hands. His gaze pierced through me with such intensity that it left my cheeks flushed. He spoke in a calm, gentle tone. "You deserve to be cherished. I truly appreciate all that you do for me. It would be wise to enlist someone to assist you with a task." His words enveloped me in a soothing embrace, sweet and comforting like honey, as tears began to gather at the corners of my eyes. I expressed my gratitude, though my voice barely reached him as I averted my gaze. I informed him that it lacked kindness as I moved in closer. It is indeed the truth. The events that unfolded in the following days only deepened his affection. Initially, Ethan assisted me with tasks I had always managed on my own. He attended to the garage door that creaked, cleared the gutters, and brought in the groceries, despite their lightness, despite the absence of any request. Many more of his touches occurred as well. He brushed his lips softly against my cheek as he passed through the kitchen, the warmth of his embraces lingering in the air, or the gentle way his hand found mine while we shared moments on the couch. He enveloped me in his embrace, a gesture that instilled a profound sense of safety within me. I found it impossible to conceal the comfort his presence brought me, or the warmth that enveloped me in his company. On a tranquil afternoon, seated on the porch with a book cradled in hand and the gentle warmth of early spring enveloping the air, Ethan emerged, bearing 2 mugs of tea. He handed it to me, then settled into his seat, his shoulder brushing gently against mine. "Are you engrossed in a captivating read?" he inquired with a cheerful, buoyant tone. I lifted the book and remarked, "Merely an old favorite." He smiled, his gaze lingering on the cover. "That particular one has consistently held a special place in your heart. Do you recall?" "Indeed, I recall every detail about you." His words hung in the air, rich with significance that remained unspoken. As he gazed at me, our eyes locked, sending my heart into a frantic rhythm. His gaze was so intense that it left me feeling utterly vulnerable. It was as if he could perceive every thought and emotion I had desperately concealed. I began to utter Ethan's name, yet the words eluded me. He extended his hand, enveloping mine with a tender touch. He spoke gently, assuring her, "You don't need to say a word. Your significance in my life is immeasurable, and my affection for you runs deep." I nodded, rendered speechless. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss against my knuckles. A shiver coursed through me at the gentleness of their touch. I swiftly withdrew my hand and placed my coffee down to attend to another task. The shift in our relationship had become unmistakably clear. Ethan's expressions of affection transcended the typical boundaries of a mother-son relationship. I attempted to convince myself that it posed no threat, yet deep down I was aware of the truth. I remained unable to distance myself from him. I was unaware of the void that existed until he arrived. The mere idea of losing his warmth and attention pierced her heart with an unbearable ache. One evening, as I stood at the stove preparing dinner, Ethan approached me from behind. His gentle hands rested on my shoulders, offering a touch that was both reassuring and steady. "It was a lengthy day," he inquired, his voice nearly brushing against mine. I shared a small portion with him. My breath hitched as his fingers began to knead the tension from my shoulders. He murmured softly, "You do too much." His hands glide with a measured grace, tracing slow, deliberate circles. "Allow me the pleasure of looking after you for once." A gentle warmth enveloped me as his words reached my ears. I shut my eyes, savoring the instant when he decisively interrupted. "Ethan, there is no obligation to do so. I desire to. Your assistance has been invaluable in every aspect. You bestowed upon me affection, existence, and a sanctuary to call home. Now it is my moment to return the favor to you." As I pivoted to meet his gaze, he placed his hands gently on my arms. His gaze was piercing, and the expression on his solemn face caused a tightness in my chest. In a gentle tone, he expressed to his mother, "You are my entire world, and I would do anything to ensure your happiness." As I gazed upon him, my eyes brimmed with tears. A tempest of love, fear, and longing surged within me. I lifted my hand and gently swept a wayward strand of hair from his forehead. My hand lingered on his forehead longer than it ought to have. I murmured, "You have already brought me joy." My voice cracked. In that fleeting exchange of glances, it felt as though time itself had paused, suspended in the air around us. The atmosphere surrounding us was thick with unspoken emotions. He leaned in gradually, pressing a gentle kiss against my cheek. He lingered with his lips on mine, and when he finally drew back, his gaze searched me as if seeking a signal. I found myself at a loss for words and actions. I realized that Ethan had transcended the role of merely being my son. He had become my entire world.